I'll open us up in prayer, and then we'll jump into worship. Happy Palm Sunday. Let me pray. Lord, we thank you for just what we're stepping into in this week. Symbolically, we're stepping into a celebration of when you enter into Jerusalem, first with the cry to make you king, and then the week ends with that cry being completely reversed, and you becoming king anyway. And so we just submit to whatever you have for us today. We celebrate what you're doing among us. It is moving us in a big way, and so we bring out symbolically in our hearts our palm branches, and we say, Hosanna in the highest. Blessed be the name of the one who comes. Blessed be the one who comes in the name of the Lord. And so we just say today, we honor what you're doing in the earth. We honor the fact that you are king over all. We honor the fact that we are alive today because you traded the death that we were on the trajectory to taste for your life, and you took it on our behalf. And there's so much to be thankful for in what we are celebrating this week. And so we just thank you today. And we pray that every bit of our worship, message, giving, all of it would be a thank you offering to you for the extravagant love that's been poured out over us. So it's in your name that we sing. Amen.
just want to move your heart. It's all I want to do. I just want to. No matter how much the cost, I freely give it all to you. All to you. I just want to move. I just want to move your heart. Get caught within your gaze, right here in your presence now is where I want to stay. Oh, just to dwell in your house. Waste my hours and my days on you. On you.
Lord, I confess that I've been a criminal. I've stolen your breath and sang my own song. Lord, I confess that I'm far from innocent. These shackles I wear, I bought on my own. Can we sing it out? Scarlet sins had a crimson cost. You nailed my death to that old rugged cross. An empty slate at the empty grave. Thank God that stone was rolled away. Lord, I confess that I've been a prodigal, made for your house, but I walked my own road. This is it. And then Jesus came and tore down my prison walls, and death came to life when he called me by name. Scarlet sins had a crimson cross. You nailed my death to that old rugged cross. An empty slate at the empty grave. Thank God that stone was rolled. Sing it again. The scarlet sins had a crimson cross. You nailed my death to that old rugged cross. An empty slate at the empty grave. Thank God that stone was rolled away. Thank God the stone was rolled away. Sing this. I see bright crimson robes draped over the ashes, a wide open tomb where there should be a casket. The children are singing and dancing and laughing. The Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. Roses in bloom, draped up from the embers. Rivers of tears flow from good times remembered. Families are singing and dancing. The Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. Heaven joins in with a glorious sound, and the great cloud of homecoming. Scarlet sands and a crimson cross. You nailed my death to that old rugged cross. An empty slate at the empty grave. Thank God that stone was rolled. Oh, 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 the Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. The Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. This is a homecoming. This is our homecoming. Let's just sing this one more time, just for the fun of it. Why don't we? Come on. I see bright crimson robes draped over the come on. A wide open tomb where there should be a casket. The children are singing and dancing and laughing. The Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. Roses in bloom, pushed up from the embers. Rivers of tears flow from good times remembered. Families are singing and the Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. Heaven joins in where the glory is sound, and the great cloud of witnesses all gather round. For the ones that were lost are finally found. The Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. Scarlet sands and a crimson cross. You nailed my death to that old rugged cross. An empty slate at the empty grave. Thank God that stone was rolled. Oh, 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 the Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. Come on, that's just fun, right? Here's what I like to imagine when we're singing. If you see me while I'm getting all I get all passionate and stuff like that. Beta makes fun of me all the time for it. Is I'm just picturing. I mean, just for a minute. I mean, we can break the solemnness of the moment for a second. I'm picturing as we're singing this stuff. I want listen to the lyrics, right? I see bright crimson robes draped over the ashes, a wide open tomb where there should be a casket. Children are singing and dancing and laughing, etc. Roses in bloom pushed up from the embers. Rivers of tears flow from good time remember. And as we're singing this song, so I have two emotions. One of those emotions is very emotional, kind of this deep, thing. But then I have another emotion that I'm feeling more of today, if I'm being honest with you. And that other emotion is this, is that, there's so much in our lives that was meant for our harm. Maybe you're walking through some of this right now. There's so much in our lives that was meant for our harm. And yet, not only did the Lord deliver those things, not deliver us from those things, the Lord leveraged the things that were meant for our harm and used those to bring about a goodness in us that couldn't come any other way but for him to leverage the stuff that was meant for our harm. This is what we see in the book of Genesis at the end. All the stuff that was meant for my demise, the Lord has taken and he's used it for good. And so as we were singing that just now, it's like, man, some of y'all might be walking through some of this stuff right now. Some of you might feel like you're facing a wide open tomb. And you're looking into it and you expect to see a casket because of whatever you're walking through. But instead, you see life and resurrection life. It almost doesn't make sense. And so as we sing that, I almost am getting this picture of my one of the guys that's been so influential in my life, Lee McDermott. I've mentioned him a lot. Always used to use the verse in Psalms, and off the top of my head in this moment, I actually can't remember what verse in Psalms it is. So I don't have the whole Bible memorized, contrary to popular belief. So anyway, but there's a verse in Psalms that talks about that every time the drum is hit, it's like hitting the enemy on the head. Okay, and so he always used to tell me that. He's like, just picture when you're leading worship, with every beat of the song, you're just drilling the enemy. And so that's why I get really passionate and stuff like this. But I'm picturing this song, and I'm like, there's so much more. It's like this is the week that we're celebrating, is the point where we had gotten at our worst, the point that we had rejected God at the most. It was that point where there should be a casket that we find a wide open tomb. And so if it's okay, can we just sing it one more time? Well, I mean, if it's not okay, we're going to do it anyway. So, I don't know why I asked that anymore, but I'm just feeling that this morning. There should be a joy on the inside of us that there's so much in our lives that was meant for our harm that the Lord has used for our good. And so let this be two things. Let this be a testimony that this has happened in our lives. Look back on the times when we should have ended right there, when our story should have ended right in that moment, and instead it pushed us forward into places that we never were before that entered our story. But then also let it be a prayer that if you're in the middle of the ashes right now, if you're in the middle of that tension right now, that the Lord is not just going to deliver you. The Lord is going to take everything that was taken from you in this season and bring it back around more so and restore it to you. I don't know what that's for. I don't know the specific details. I know some of them, but I'm telling you today, we have a God. I'm getting real. I feel like I'm Pentecostal a little bit this morning. That's okay. We have a God that doesn't just restore things as they were before you went through whatever you went through. We have a God that repays everything that was taken from us more than, with interest, what was taken from us. And so I believe that this morning, and we're going to sing this as a testimony and then as a statement of belief that the places where there are ashes, there are roses that are blooming out of them, that children are singing and families are singing and dancing and laughing in the places that was not present before, because there is an announcement of the good news of Jesus Christ. There is resurrection, new life that is available to us because of what we're celebrating symbolically this week. So y'all just sing. Let's just sing it one more time, and then we'll jump into the message. But this is honestly more important than the message right now in this moment. So y'all sing it with us. I see bright crimson robes draped over the ashes, a wide open tomb where there should be a casket. The children are singing and dancing and laughing. Come on. The Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. Roses in bloom, pushed up from the embers. Rivers of tears flow from good times remembered. Families are singing and dancing. The Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. Heaven joins in where the glorious sound, and the great cloud of witnesses all gather round. For the ones that were lost are finally found. The Father is welcoming. This is our homecoming. Scarlet stands at a crimson cross. You nailed my death to that old rugged cross, and that is being breathed on us. And it's been breathed on us for the past few weeks, but it almost feels, it feels different. And so it takes our spirits, our emotions, our minds, philosophies, all that other fun stuff. It takes a minute to recalibrate to the things that you're doing in us, but I think that's happening. I believe that's happening. And so you're moving us into a season where it's not going to be I feel this morning, so I want you to just believe this with me. And I'm going to say this carefully, but this next season, the season we're in, the beginning stages of, is not going to be as much marked by blind belief and faith as it is going to be marked by extreme joy. I believe this. There is a season for you to just walk by faith and not by sight. Absolutely. Okay? And when you're in that season, you almost carry this fear of the unknown, but you're going anyway. You're doing the next right thing, all that stuff. But then there just comes a time when the Lord hands the land over to you, and you are settled in the land, and you have peace on every side. And in that season's not a time for blind faith. That season is a time for eyes wide open joy and thanksgiving and exuberance and fun and peace like you never had before, because you've seen the work of the Lord. You've seen him do what he said he was going to do, and now you can enjoy living in all the stuff that he said he's going to do. And so I'm telling you right now, I believe this today, that this season is not going to be as much marked by blind faith as it is joy, unspeakable and full of glory. And so we thank you for that. I feel that. I'm believing that. It doesn't mean you don't have to even feel it right now to believe that. But we just got to get our hopes up that the days ahead are greater than the days that we have come from, that the glory of this latter house is far greater than the glory of the former house, and that you're pushing us into a kingdom expression that is full of the love and joy that comes from being embraced by the gospel in its wholeness. And as we do that, it's going to be a testimony to the world that this thing is as good as everything on the inside of you hopes that it is. And so we thank you today. We crown you as King in this room on Palm Sunday. In your name, amen. Matt's going to play for just a second, if you don't mind, Matt. Y'all grab some coffee and get settled in and all that other good stuff, and then we'll get into the rest.
Take it easy, Matt, whenever you're ready. Or keep going. Honestly, I like the ambiance. So, everybody, welcome to Dream Church. I think everyone's pretty much a familiar face here. Some new people tuning online, I know today. Just a couple of reminders and announcements of things that are going on. This upcoming Friday is Good Friday. We're going to be having a worship night, not here, actually at Pastor Josh's house. And so, if you don't already have the address, that's something that we're going to share with the group. We have a church body group me they'll be sharing that with, and if you aren't a part of that, or you want to be a part of that, or you just don't want to be a part of that, but you want the address so you can join us for Good Friday, then reach out to Jenna, myself, Matt, Josh. Either way, it'll work. So Good Friday worship this Friday night. I believe I don't have a time for that, but just 7. Thanks, Michael. Just clear your whole Friday evening so we can hang out together. Sunday, the following Sunday is Easter Sunday. We're going to be back here at 10 a.m. Bring your family, bring your friends. so that we can really rest in what Easter is about as a body. And last reminder is that we as a church family, a lot of us together, are going through the Bible in 90 days. And if that hasn't happened, if you haven't started that yet, there's some built-in days of rest in between. And so I wouldn't say you're too far behind. You're probably going to have to audio listen to the Bible a lot and just really cram it in. Spend mass amounts of your weekend reading. But hey, it's an endeavor that we're taking a part in to just really get a deeper measure of what the Lord has for us in a way that it was written. All these letters and these books were written to be read at a single time. And so we're really just diving in with a depth. And on Tuesday nights we talk about this. The Lord's just really been pulling a lot out of everyone who's been a part of it. And that's another reminder is Tuesday nights. I think we're going to be doing every other Tuesday from here on. We've been meeting every Tuesday, but it being summer, we're going to start meeting every other Tuesday. Some people will be doing hangouts, guys, girls separate, just doing fun things in between. But Tuesday nights are really important. So we as a body and as a family share a lot. There's a lot that you bring to the table that we will be missing out on if you're not there on Tuesday nights. Just to be honest, you have a lot to bring to the table. Don't sell yourself short on that. And there's a lot that's been coming out of the Bible in 90 Days reading life that our family, our brothers and sisters are walking through, that they've been able to share on a time like that on a Tuesday here at 7, every other Tuesday. That's been very life-giving. So please come, spend some time with us, spend some time with the body. You have a lot to offer, and you have a church family to lean on with everything that's going on in your life and to celebrate with you as well. So that's all I got for announcements. Send me something.
That's perfect.
You gotta give it.
Yeah. Yep. And this Tuesday we won't have group here because of the worship night Friday. So I don't know if he mentioned that, but just as a little reminder. Thanks, Matt. We will give at the end of the service. So hang all of your checks, life savings. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, not crypto. Well, I guess right now crypto's good this week. But anyway, save it for the. Did you say retirement? yeah, nice. I'm really excited for Easter this week. I also found out this might ruin everybody's Easter this week. Did y'all know Easter is actually not this Sunday technically? Because Jesus was crucified, Passover, and Passover is not until the end of April. So Easter is this weekend because of Walmart and legit and consumer ideas of when Easter is going to be. But technically Easter is May 5th. So we're going to celebrate it next Sunday, but just thought that was interesting information. So because there's Passover, and then it's when Jesus actually rose from the grave. So anyway, but Easter Bunny's great too. John 12, that was, y'all could hear the tone in my voice when I said that, right? John 12, and we are going to start at verse number 1, John 12. I'm taking a little break from the Old Testament as much as I fought this, but I felt like it was right to do. So we are going to kind of get into Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. Man, how quick that was! How quick of an entry and triumph that was, and then they all scream, "Crucify him!" So, but anyway, we're gonna focus on Palm Sunday. So, let me I'm gonna go ahead and read John 12. I'm gonna read down to verse 19, and so 1 to 19, and I'm just gonna read it, and then we'll walk through it. So, hopefully, you're there by now. John should be like indented in everybody's Bibles at this point if you've been here for a while. So, John 12, here we go. 6 days before the Passover, there it is, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. Now, just to give you context, the death and resurrection of Lazarus is in the chapter before. So this is kind of coming on the heels of the Lazarus stuff. So 6 days before Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. There, they gave a dinner for him. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those at the table with him. Mary took a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard, anointed Jesus' feet, and wiped them with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume, but Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, the one who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor?" So just so you know, 300 denarii is about a year's wage. So whatever your salary is for the year, that's how much was just poured on Jesus' feet. Okay? This is a big gift. It wasn't just perfume that you bought at, wherever. This is a big deal. So Judas says, "Why was this not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. Now remember, John is written, way after this is taking place. So I love how they're giving you little jabs at Judas, He didn't say this because he cared about the poor. He said this because that dude was a thief. He kept the common purse and used to steal what was put in it. Just so you know. Verse 7, Jesus said, "Leave her alone. She bought it so that she might keep it for the day of my burial. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me." Verse 9. When the great crowd of the Jews learned that he was there, they came not only because of Jesus, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priest planned to put Lazarus to death as well, since it was on account of him that many of the Jews were deserting and were believing in Jesus. The next day, the crowd that had come to the festival heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, so they took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him, shouting, "Hosanna, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, the King of Israel." Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, as it is written, this is from Isaiah, "Do not be afraid, daughter Zion. Look, your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt." His disciples did not understand these things at first, but when Jesus was glorified, then they remembered that these things had been written of him and had been done to him. So the crowd that had been with him, when he called Lazarus out of the tomb and raised him from the dead, continued to testify. It was also because they heard that he had performed this sign that the crowd went to meet him. The Pharisees said to one another, "You see, you can do nothing. Look, the world has gone after him." The world has gone after him. Can I just read this really quickly in another translation? You don't have to turn. I'm going to just read it fast. Don't worry. I said that, and then Brandon's like, "I'm out." Just listen to this. 6 days before the Passover began, Jesus went back to Bethany, the town where he raised Lazarus from the dead. They had prepared a supper for Jesus. Martha served, and Lazarus and Mary were among those at the table. At the table, they would have been sitting. Does this sound familiar? Okay, Martha's preparing this meal. At the table, you see Mary sitting with Jesus. Does that sound familiar? If not, I'll tell you why in a minute. There's one difference here, and I'll point that out in a second. Mary picked up an alabaster jar filled with nearly a liter of extremely rare and costly perfume, the purest extract of nard, and she anointed Jesus' feet. Then she wiped them dry with her long hair, and the fragrance of the costly oil filled the house. But Judas, the locksmith, Simon's son, the betrayer, spoke up and said, "What a waste! We could have sold this perfume for a fortune and given the money to the poor." In fact, Judas had no heart for the poor. He only said that because he was a thief and in charge of the money case. He would steal money whenever he wanted from the funds given to support Jesus' ministry. Jesus said to Judas, "Leave her alone. She has saved it for the time of my burial. You'll always have the poor with you, but you won't always have me." Verse 9. When the word got out that Jesus was not far from Jerusalem, a large crowd came to see him, and they also wanted to see Lazarus, the man Jesus raised from the dead. This prompted the chief priest to seal their plans to do away with both Jesus and Lazarus. For his miracle testimony was incontrovertible and was persuading many of the Jews living in Jerusalem to believe in Jesus. The next day, the news that Jesus was on the way to Jerusalem swept through the massive crowd, and they gathered for the feast. So they took palm branches and went out to meet him. Everyone was shouting, "Lord, be our Savior. Blessed is the one who comes to us, sent from Jehovah God, the King of Israel." Then Jesus found a young donkey and rode on it to fulfill what was prophesied. People of Zion, have no fear. Look, your king is coming to you riding on a young donkey. Now, Jesus' disciples did not fully understand the importance of what was taking place. That's key. They didn't fully understand until after he was raised and exalted into glory, and then they understood how Jesus fulfilled all the prophecies and scriptures that were written about him. All the eyewitnesses of the miracle Jesus performed when he called Lazarus out of the tomb and raised him from the dead kept spreading the news about Jesus to everyone. The news of this miracle resurrection caused the crowds to swell as great numbers of people welcomed him into the city with joy. But the Pharisees were disturbed by this and said to one another, "We will not be able to stop this. The whole world is going to run after him." There's a familiar situation happening at the onset of this passage that we're all very familiar with, which is Luke 10, 38 through 42. This is where you get the Martha, Martha, you're worried about many things. Mary is only concerned about one thing, and it will not be taken from her, right? This is John's version of that situation, okay? So in this, you see, Martha served, same as in Luke, and Mary sat, okay? However, one significant difference from John's account compared to Luke's account is that Lazarus is present. He's not present in Luke 10, but he is here. And this makes sense given the writers of John have just walked us through the raising of Lazarus in John 11. This is on purpose and one of the many reasons that John is my favorite gospel. John is telling a bigger story, okay? So the first question that we have to ask is, why is this story the precursor to the Passion story, which is Palm Sunday leading all the way up to the death, burial, resurrection, ascension of Jesus? Why does the writers of John, why do they place the raising of Lazarus as the precursor to the whole entire Passion narrative? This is the question the text is calling us to ask. It wants us to ask this question. What happened in the story of Lazarus? Just a quick summary. Jesus takes this journey to the place where he would raise his friend from the dead, but ultimately, this results in him taking the journey to die himself. So John is symbolically communicating in this that Jesus is trading our death for his life, and ultimately that will bring us back to life as Lazarus was brought back to life. He's going to the place of death where Lazarus has died. He's calling Lazarus to come out of his place of death. And as Lazarus comes out of the tomb, Jesus then starts the journey to the tomb. There's a trade taking place here. So there's gospel written all over this. But this opening passage is kind of an odd passage on the surface, is it not? Especially for us in modern days. Why does this matter? Maybe is a question that you're reading this. I mean, it's a great story, right? Mary anoints Jesus, wipes it with her hair. It's a really great story. Honor, reverence, all that stuff. But does it really matter? Does it change the story? Isn't just the part, if you're being honest, that typically you're moved by, but then you very quickly move on from and get to the good stuff, right? It's like you read this portion just to get to the portion of Palm Sunday. Like you have to read it, but then you move up past it to get to Hosanna. But the fact that this is placed before the Hosanna stuff is the writers trying to tell us this is the important part. Okay? So I really want to spend a few minutes talking about this first portion. The perfume that is placed on Jesus' feet is nard. Okay? It was extremely expensive. Like I said, 1 year's wages for a typical laborer. It was possibly, scholars go back and forth on this, it was possibly her family's treasured possession, as in like inheritance. So this is like you've put away money your entire life for your kids' wedding. And then they grow up, they get married, you take out $20,000, $30,000, however much you've saved, you give it to them so that they can get married. You know? So this possibly is this family's treasure. It's the thing that means the most to them. And Mary has just seemingly, half-heartedly, if you will, now of course we know that's not the case, but Mary has taken this treasured possession and without thought, without hesitation, has cracked it open and lavishly poured it on Jesus' feet. She doesn't just take a few drops, which would have been enough. Okay? She doesn't just take a few drops, puts it on her hand, anoints Jesus' feet. Why? She breaks the jar, and all of it comes in an overflowing, exaggeratory, exuberant way, comes pouring out on the feet of Jesus. She literally spends all that she treasures at the feet of Jesus. Mary, after witnessing the events of Lazarus rising from the dead, takes her costly treasure and places it literally at the feet of Jesus. The aroma fills the house and is the fragrance that you would expect to smell from a king. And now we're moving into some Palm Sunday stuff. This fragrance, this nard, would have been very common for a king. Okay? So as she breaks this treasure, it's poured out at the feet of Jesus, and the smell of kingship fills the room. One of the meanings of the name Mary has actually a lot of different names. One of them could be bitter. But one of the meanings of the name Mary in Hebrew is beloved. So a beloved one, having witnessed the resurrection life from the Word, Jesus, the good news of God, she takes her most costly possession and breaks it so that it's all spent or placed at the feet of Jesus. And that act precedes the salvation of the cosmos in Greek, the world. So think about the fact that it is highly likely that the soldiers, as they're piercing Jesus' feet, with every hit of the hammer, there is a waft of this nard hitting their nostrils. Think about this. Every time they're drilling the nails into Jesus' feet, every time that hammer comes back and the wind is pulled back toward them, they're smelling the smell of a king. I mean, this is huge. However, Judas Iscariot just simply means a man from Hebron. Actually, what's really cool about this, and Judas is probably the only non-Galilean member of the 12. What you want to do with that is great, but he's a very unique person in the midst of the 12 disciples. But Judas Iscariot, he steps in as this taking place, and it seems like it interrupts the story. You have this moment where Mary breaks this. She's wiping Jesus' feet. It's this really just emotionally moving moment. And then out of nowhere, the insertion is Judas steps up and says, "Can you believe this? Think about all that could have been done with this. We could have, now, as we're told here, Judas didn't care about the poor, you know? So what Judas cares about is that money could have been sold, it could have been placed in the offering for the poor, and then I could have lived high and mighty, you know? That's what he's really saying. But he's saying, this money could have been spent on the poor. In other words, this has been wasted. Now, this passage is not saying that we shouldn't give to the poor, okay? Just by the way. In fact, this passage is not even speaking to what we should or should not do with the poor. The passage is contrasting the act of a beloved one spending all she had to lavish her worship on Jesus with someone who is still caught up on the law of works, which says you are what you do. In other words, giving a lot to the poor equals becoming a lot in the eyes of God. The gospel, listen, of works will always be offended by extravagant acts of a gospel of love. The gospel of works, you are what you do, will always be offended by an extravagant act that comes from a revelation of the gospel of love. In fact, moments like this are what causes Judas to hand Jesus over and betray Jesus. Judas is not convinced that he is the true Messiah from God, because if he were, wouldn't he be doing all the works that the law commands us to do? If this is the Messiah and the Son of God, if he really is the Word of God, would he not be laser focused on following the law to a T and then rebuking everybody who is not following the law to the T? I mean, that's what Moses gave us. So Judas is not convinced that Jesus is who he says he is because of the way that Jesus acts and the way Jesus moves and the way Jesus goes to those on the outside like tax collectors, and instead of rebuking them because they didn't keep Leviticus 6:13, instead he goes to the tax collector and he calls him in, and he becomes the one that the first gospel in the New Testament is named after, Matthew. He's the one going to these people on the outside, like the woman who is about to be stoned that's caught in the act of adultery. And while all the religious leaders are saying, well, Moses told us that we should do this, he's going and picking her up off the ground and saying, this isn't who you are, but I'm going to tell you who you are. Go and sin no more. You know? I mean, he's doing what all those who are scholarly in the law have no mind to see and receive. Therefore, Judas is not convinced that Jesus is the Messiah, which is why it's so easy for him to hand him over to who? The religious leaders. Right? Yet, Jesus is fulfilling the work of the law because, as Jesus says, and as the Old Testament itself witnesses to, all the law and the prophets are summed up in love. So by Mary's act, she is fulfilling the law by way of her devotion. I get Judas and Jesus mixed up because they're a couple of letters away. Judas's true issue is not a man who doesn't keep the law. Judas's true issue is a man who doesn't keep the law as Judas thinks he should. Jesus is perfect. Jesus does not fail at any of the law. Even in the Sermon on the Mount, when he says, Moses tells you not to murder, but I'm telling you not to hate. He's not saying it's okay to murder. Jesus is taking it a step further. And he's saying, not only should you not murder, you shouldn't hate your brother or sister. So the standard is not being lowered. In Jesus, the standard is being raised to a heart level. You know what I'm saying? It's not like Jesus is saying, just go do whatever you want. Jesus is saying, the extravagant love that's being poured out in you by the gospel is calling you to live in a place higher than you were when you were in a law of works. But the way that you can do that is because it's no longer required that you do X, Y, and Z to get there. I'm taking you there. So all you have to do is live as if you are where you really are, and you fulfill everything you could never fulfill while you were trying to climb a ladder that was always running against you. The work of the law, the gospel of works, is like running up a down escalator that's on hyperspeed. You'll work and work and work and stay in the exact same place the entire time. And if at any moment you stop working, you hit the ground. You know? Whereas the gospel of love is the escalator that's going up, where you just simply step on it and then let the gospel and the work of Jesus take you where you're supposed to go. So Judas, his issue is not Jesus is someone who is flippant with the law. Jesus fulfills the law. Remember? I didn't come to do away with the law and prophets. I came to fulfill them. Jesus is fulfilling the law. So Judas's issue is not with that. His issue is that Jesus is fulfilling the law in the way other than Judas thinks he should. So it's not that Jesus is unholy. It's Judas's idea of holiness that is other than Jesus' truth of holiness. It's his philosophy. The gospel longs to reform both theology and philosophy. It doesn't matter if you have the right theology if you're trying to make it fit inside of old ways of thinking. Likewise, new ways of thinking on their own don't matter if you have an old theology. Jesus calls us to repent, metanoia, change how we think, because the kingdom of heaven is at hand, theology. They have to go hand in hand. I think sometimes we're okay with theology being reformed. Where we struggle in the South, especially, so much is when he comes to reform our philosophy, when he comes to reform how we think. I mean, look at the political system. You know? I mean, we've moved beyond logical thinking because we've got to be right, we've got to be on this side, and because that's how we grew up. You know? Same with anything that has to do with the Lord. For example, a great example of this, and I try to restrain myself at Easter, but some of y'all have been here for some of my Easters and know I can't do that sometimes. But I try to restrain myself because Easter, every church in the city will be slammed on Easter. You know? And everybody will be buttoned up. I told Jordan I'm wearing a t-shirt for Easter, not because I want to, just to, go against the system. But anyway. Buttoned up, suit and tie, dusted off. We'll go to Easter, celebrate the resurrection. And then we'll see you again next Easter. It's like, what are we, you know what I mean? I mean, here's, just to be clear, here's what that's doing. It's saying, hey, Jesus, here's the resurrection, and then the whole rest of the year, I'm gonna do this right here. Why? Because I'm busy. Got stuff going on. I got a life. I mean, that's normal, right? You know? And see, this time of year, but that's the zeal of the Lord, that Jesus has spent his life so that we could be made right with God, and the best we can do is one day a year. But in the South, that's normal. Totally normal. Like we don't even say anything about it. In fact, we'll spend millions of dollars to market that happening. Come see us at Easter. We'll give you free candy. We'll give you gift cards. We'll give you there's a church that's giving away $100 bills for new guests that are coming on Easter, you know? So if y'all don't see me next week, I'm going to get my money, you know? Actually, me, Jordan, and Vader are going to get our money. We're all going to go separately so we get $300. But maybe we should take a whole church trip, and then we'll all go get money. And then, fundraiser. And then we'll do Easter on actual Easter. See? And then we can play the system twice. Anyway. So, but this is our thinking. Like, we're seeing this right now. We have a lot of Judas. We have a lot of Judas in us, which says we will all day long complain about Jesus doing stuff that doesn't look like what we think he should do. And then at the same time, in the same breath, we will move in ways that are counter the very gospel that we say we stand for. I mean, it's so interesting. But the gospel longs to reform us on both a theological perspective, how we view God, and then a philosophical perspective, how we think. So Mary, the one who sits at the feet of Jesus and receives the portion that will not be taken from her, Luke 10, has had her theology reformed, this man is God, and her philosophy reformed. Her thinking is, I could sell this and give it to the poor, and I could gain religious points. Absolutely. But my heart requires that I spend it all on the one who has ravished my being in trust that my sacrifice of worship will also result in all other ministry being accomplished. In other words, she's saying, this will not give me a name, but it will lift up his. I mean, you see that Judas, we could imagine what the leaders would say about us if we spent a year's salary on the poor. And Mary saying, I could care less what the leaders say about me as long as he gets what my heart requires me to give. This is what Song of Songs 112 says. As the king surrounded me at his table, the sweet fragrance of my perfume awakened the night. This is the cry of Mary. As the king surrounded me at his table, okay? They're at this table, Lazarus there, Mary's there, Martha's working like she always does, missing the whole thing. The fragrance of my perfume awakens the night. And then we see that the crowd wants to see both Lazarus and Jesus. They want to see the one resurrected and the one with the power to resurrect. And the chief priest sees this as a threat and begins plans to kill not just Jesus now, both Jesus and Lazarus. And think about what this is communicating to us. Okay, we're moving from spending all we have at Jesus' feet, and then the one resurrected and the one with the power to resurrect are both now targeted by the religious leaders for their lives. Listen to what Matthew 6:24 says. Matthew 6:24 calls us to take up our own cross and follow Jesus. So when we begin to look like Jesus, which we're all knit together in our mother's womb to do, when we begin to look like Jesus, we will also be targeted like Jesus. And not by the world. Because remember in the Gospels, the world is drawn to Jesus. I just read this. Listen. The Pharisees then said to one another, you see, you can do nothing. Look, the world has gone after him. So, the target on Lazarus and Jesus was not the world. The world was drawn to Jesus because they didn't have a law to jump over in order to see God properly. It was the religious leaders that were targeting both Lazarus and Jesus. It isn't the world that has an issue with authentic Jesus, it's religion. It isn't the world who has an issue with the embrace of a God that calls them to come home. It's religion who has an issue with the scope of the embrace of God and therefore edits the embrace to fit within what it is comfortable with. Right? It's not the world that struggles with the embrace that it desperately needs. It's religion that struggles with the scope of God's embrace that is reaching out to embrace those that, if we're being honest, we don't really want anyway. I mean, if we're being real. And so we begin to edit and we begin to communicate a gospel that calls us to become a certain version of a certain person in order to come in and experience the community that is also becoming certain versions of certain people, rather than communicating an embrace of God that reaches out to call everyone to come into an authentic expression of who they were made to be, that when that happens and a family of people can finally find the freedom to be the authentic expression of who they are meant to be, you begin to have people doing insane things like taking everything they once valued and breaking it open and pouring it at the feet of Jesus and seeing that as worth it. Judas wasn't doing this. Judas was taking from Jesus, right? Then you have Mary, who is taking this expensive thing and she has no issue busting it open and giving it all. Do you see the contrast here? You have one that's caught up in religion in such a way that he's about to kill the Son of God, And then you have another one who is so ravished because she has spent her days with this man sitting at the feet of Jesus, not worried about all that she needs to do to prepare and make a way and do all the stuff that needs to be done, but sitting at the feet of Jesus and receiving the words that are pouring out of the mouth of God, the Word of God, in such a way that her heart has become reformed, her philosophy has been changed to the point that she sees Jesus for who He really is. And when you begin to see Jesus for who He really is, there is no value that could possibly communicate or express the worth that is now given to one who has seen the real and true God expressed in their life. That's a lot. So it's not the world that has the issue. I believe it's religion. And if religion could loosen the reins on this law of works that we hold so dear because we can control things, we can fearmonger to get our ways. If we could release the reins and give them back to Jesus and get very uncomfortable with what He does with the reins, we would begin to see the promise of the church be fulfilled. The promise of the church, the promise of the creation itself, not just the church. The church, I've taught this for years, but it's been a while. The church is nothing but a microcosm of the redeemed creation. Here's what that means. The church is the seed. It's the first fruit of what will ultimately become all of creation. That's what the church was meant to be. It wasn't meant to be a portion of the creation that's redeemed while we watch the rest of creation go to Hades. You know, the church was supposed to be the seed that is planted within creation until it begins to grow to the point that the creation becomes that which has been planted within it. This is why Romans 8 says things like, all of creation is standing on tiptoe, yearning for the manifestation of the sons and daughters of God so that with us it can experience freedom from its decay. Right? This is why you have Jesus making statements like this. God did not send His Son into the world to condemn the world, but that through Him, the cosmos in Greek, the world, the creation, might be saved, might be made whole, might be made right again. I mean, this is what it's saying. And so, as we get this, as we realize that what is taking place in us is nothing but the starting point for the entirety of creation, we'll start to see this as much more than just a Sunday to Sunday event that takes place in the room. We'll begin to see this as what it really is, which is the beginnings of what the creation is standing on tiptoe waiting for. And the reason that we haven't seen it up till this point is because we've compartmentalized the church as something other than the creation, and the creation is not waiting for a great ministry movement. The creation is not waiting for a great church to rise up that has 1 million people in it. The creation is not waiting for a bunch of preachers who can preach the house down. It's waiting for sons and daughters of God to simply be unveiled. And as me and you, as we begin to be unveiled as who we really are, that becomes the signpost for creation that says we're finally going to be free from our decay. Because the true sons and daughters of God don't take their son and daughtership and edit it to fit whatever they think it should be. True sons and daughters of God just simply receive from the Father exactly what the Father wants them to have, and then live and move and have the freedom to become whatever you're called to become within the safety of, this isn't what I think it should be. It's not supposed to be what I think it should be, but it's exactly what He's always planned from the very beginning, from the very first let there be. And so what I've got to do is I've got to release the control, and I've got to simply be the one that says, I don't know how we're going to make back the money that I'm about to break open at the feet of Jesus. But I'm not worried about how we're going to make back the money. My intention in this moment is to give all that I have to the one who I know is about to give all He has to me. Right? And then what does Jesus promise the disciples when they ask, Peter asked, being a businessman, Peter says, you know, Jesus, we've given up everything. We've given up houses, families. What do we get? And Jesus tells them straight up, He says, and we got to get this. He says, you who have given up all of this stuff will be given all of it back and 100-fold. Listen to what he says. In this life and in the next. And this isn't like a prosperity gospel thing. At the same time, this sure isn't a impoverished gospel either. You know? And it's like we have this mentality that a sacrifice that we give to the Lord is us signing it away. What we give to the Lord is, if I could be real, just down to earth, is an investment that has the highest rate of return of any investment that we could ever give in the earth. And so when you give to the Lord, all it is a heart posture test. Where your treasure is, there your heart is. So when you give to the Lord, it is a reorienting of your heart. And then the promise is, in Malachi, if you'll test me and give me the little bit that I'm asking from you to reorient your heart, I'll throw open my floodgates and pour out upon you what you don't even have room for. So he's not asking for an equal exchange, and he's sure not asking for us to lack. He's asking for us to reorient our heart to the place where we can receive what he really wants to give us, which is abundance beyond what we even have a mind for in this moment. So when Mary breaks open the alabaster box, when she tears open the nard and pours it out on her feet, I believe that there is no doubt in Mary's mind that whatever was just spent at the feet of Jesus will be given back to them, and even more so. No doubt. Which is why she can have the confidence to spend it all on him. Because faith is not just blind. I said this earlier. Faith is not just, I'm just going to throw this in the wind and hope it all comes back to me at some point. That's not what faith is. Faith is saying, I know the promises of God. I know the nature and character of God. Therefore, I'm not going to blindly do anything. I'm going to, in a smart mind, full of the promises of God, in Christ Jesus, we're told all the promises of God are yes and amen. And so knowing that, I'm going to sow everything I have. And I'm not just talking about finances. I'm talking about everything. I'm going to sow everything that I have at the feet of Jesus. And then I'm going to take those promises to God. And I'm going to say, my heart is for you. All that I have is yours. Therefore, I will receive the promises that you've spoken over me. That's what it means to walk by faith. It doesn't mean to close your eyes and hope you don't jump off a cliff. It means you begin to walk knowing that the road in front of you was paved specifically for the walk that you are taking. It's a confidence. Let me say it like this. All of you, I think most of you, got those stimulus checks a couple of years ago from the government, right? Right? My favorite was the meme when they gave all that out of the Elevation song where it's like we sing it. What's it called? The Blessing. And your family and your children, their children. And y'all see the meme when they gave out the stimulus checks and the top said, who's going to be paying for the stimulus checks? And then it was the video of that song like, your family and your children and their children, right? Because it's true. Nevertheless, none of us cared about that when we saw $4,000 or whatever it was show up in our bank account, right? I sure wasn't thinking about who's paying for this. All I'm thinking about is all the stuff that I wanted to do, especially when you're in ministry. $4,000 is basically a lottery ticket. And so anyway, we got those. Now, I don't know about you. The next time we walked into Target, after we got those stimulus checks, I'm like, king, I can own this store. I'm just, I'm walking around. I got my chest out. Jordan's like, man, I really like that. I'm like, get it. Treat yourself, It's like, I think we want to get organic this week. Hey, go ahead. It's all good, And then we spin it all on this right back to reality. But see, when you know you've got that, you just walk different, right? I mean, you just walk with this kind of swag, like it's all good. If something bad happens, it's okay. I got the money to take care of it. It's fine, And we walk by faith from the other end of the spectrum, which is I'm terrified. I have no money. If my car breaks down on the way home, I'm homeless. And we've all, I don't know about you, we've all been there too. Most of us have been there too. We've both been in both places, right? Where it's just like, Lord, I know that I have to get a new transmission, but I can't afford it, so can you please just let this car work another day? You know? In fact, the car that I'm driving right now, the check engine light comes on and off all the time, and I'm like, please God, just let this light go off, you know? So like cover it up. Like if I don't look at it, maybe it'll just go away, you know, the problem. And anyway, and so when we have that situation going on in our lives, when finances are not great, we live fragile. I mean, you know, like we live scared. We really do. I mean, like, trust me, I'm speaking to somebody in ministry. Like, we live fearful. Whereas when we know we've got all this reserves, we live with confidence. And the reason we live with confidence is because we've been prepared for this, whether or not it came from the government or you saving or whatever. Like, we've been made for this moment, and you walk with a confidence. Walking in faith is not walking fragile. It's not walking as if, like, I'm just going to take a risk. I'm going to throw my money at some Bitcoin and pray to God it goes to 1 million. You know what I mean? Or whatever. This is not what walking by faith is. Walking by faith is knowing the money's in your account before you take a step. It's walking knowing that if the Lord called you, and of course I'm not literally talking about finances, but it's knowing that the Lord, when He calls you, He doesn't call you to things, He doesn't call you to a life that you have to, in some way, shape, or form, risk it all to get it all back. He calls you to something that's already in your account. If He called you to it, He's already prepared you in every way, shape, or form for it. You've just got to walk. And you've got to walk with this confidence, knowing if God is on my side, who can stand against me? You know what I mean? If God is on our side, what can stand against us? And that's the mindset that I think we've got to get back to. We've got to claw our way back from living underneath this oppressive idea that maybe we won't make it, and instead move into the place where we're willing to spend whatever we have on the Lord, knowing that I've got the promises of God, and that's all I need. I mean, there's been moments where I've gone to prayer to the Lord in moments of need. I've gone to the Lord and I've said, here are your promises. Here's your promise. You promised it, not me. You promised this for me. So here are your promises, and they are yes and amen in Jesus. I need you to move. And that's not irreverent. That's faith. That's me saying, I'm not in control of this. I don't know how this is going to happen, and guess what? It ain't my problem because I put my trust in you. So it's your issue that you're going to have to take care of, and the Lord is saying, finally. You know what I mean? I mean, I know, like, some of you, even y'all, there's some Judas in the room. You're like, man, I can't believe he's saying that. And yet, like, well, God, if you'll just do this, I promise I'll never look at that ever again. As I felt that. You know what I mean? I felt that. As if there is some kind of exchange. I promise, Lord, I'll never do that again if you'll just. Or, God, I'll never make that decision with my money ever again if you'll just. And we live there's this exchange that has to take place. That's a gospel of works. Rather than living under this place where it's like, you know what? My life is going to be a broken perfume glass over the feet of Jesus. Whatever I have, I'm going to spend it on Him. And again, I'm not just talking about finance. I'm talking about calling, life, relationship, all that stuff. It's all going to be placed at the feet of Jesus. And as it is placed at the feet of Jesus, the aroma is going to begin to fill the room, and as I crown Him as king over my life, I get the reward of a life where Jesus is king over it. And His kingdom, we're told, of the increase of His kingdom and peace, there is no end. So I want you to hear me. If Jesus is king over your kingdom, the promise is that kingdom increases to no end. And the peace of that kingdom increases to no end. So these are the things that are going back and forth. And so you get to this place where Jesus enters into Jerusalem. I'm almost done. And they're crying out, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Let's make him king. Do not be afraid," the prophecy says, "daughter of Zion. Your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt," which is not what kings rode. They rode these big royal stallions. And here comes Jesus on a donkey in this humble posture of just simply being a man. And he rides through town. There's claim, make him king, make him king, make him king. And from this point on, the religious leaders, and I want you to hear this, from this point, as the crowd, their hearts are turned to Jesus, they are almost forcing him. This is the feeling you get when you're reading this, that they are forcing him. He's going to be king. From that point forward, the religious leaders start to stir up this tension in the crowd to the point where just a little bit of time after this, most of the people that were in the crowd saying, "Make him king," are then in the crowd saying, "Give us Barabbas, let's kill him." And how does that happen? How do you go from a posture of "let's make him king" to a posture of "let's kill him"? Religion. There's no other. It is this thing that says Jesus. I'm imagining them with this, papyrus scroll, so I don't have a book, but going through to the people and saying like, "Hey, I know you think Jesus is great. Yeah, he raised Lazarus from the dead. If that's true, was Lazarus really dead? Who is Lazarus? Like, didn't he grow up? Yeah, are y'all sure? But look at right here. Check this out. In Leviticus, it says right here, boop, 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 boop. And Jesus, Jesus on the Sabbath, he healed that person on the Sabbath. Leviticus tells us don't do that. He can't be from God. And people are like, "Oh yeah, you're right." And they begin to stir this up to the point where they're like, "Hey, let's kill him. Give us Barabbas. Let's kill him." And then Jesus does the crazy thing where he goes to the cross. He's looking out over this people that a few days before were saying, "Let's make him king." And then a few days after are saying, "Let's all kill him." And he's looking at the people who just drilled his hands into a cross, who just drilled his feet into a cross. They're all spitting, mocking, doing the whole thing. They're trading lots for his clothes, all this stuff. God. And he looks down at them and he says, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." What? So you get the sense that Jesus is he's like, "Yeah, this stinks, you can see everything. You can see it all." However, they've lost their minds. You know what I mean? "Father, forgive them." They have no idea. He goes into the tomb. He rises up on the third day, and it's this, you get this sense, because it says the disciples did not understand these things at first. They only understood those when Jesus was glorified, which is after he's resurrected, right? So you even get this sense that the disciples are carrying this doubt, like, "Man, I just don't know. This is not what we thought it was going to be, I thought we were going to kill all the Romans like the days of old. David killed all the Philistines. I thought we were going to kill all the Romans, And then here's Jesus going to the Romans and healing them. Like, what? This can't be it, And so they can't fit. And then Jesus goes to the tomb. He rises on the third day. And even still, you have Thomas coming to him saying, "Man, I just don't know." And then he places his hands and touches it. And he's like, finally, he's just like, "Oh yeah, this is him." The point is the Gospels are constantly communicating to us that there is a tension between what we think things should be like and how things are. And if we could ever cross that chasm to expect how things really are rather than to expect something other than how things really are, we could begin to live life to the absolute full. How many of us are willing to pay a price that Mary pays here in John 12? I don't know if I'm there. I'm being honest with you. How many of us are willing to take everything that we have and just almost, I wanted to say waste, but it's not a waste, but in our minds, and just waste it on the feet of Jesus? How many of us are in that posture where it's like you can have it all? I'm so reformed on the heart level that you can just have it all and whatever happens, happens. But I've got to give it all to you. We're not there yet. But when we could get to that place and not see that as a risk, we could begin to see the creation finally say they're coming alive. So 3 things that the Lord's calling us to. Number 1, he's placing all of those that are at the feet of Jesus, knowing that's exactly where all of us belong. 3 things that Jesus is calling us. He's placing us, he's calling us to be placed and seated at the feet of Jesus, knowing that that's exactly where all of us belongs. And I'm not just talking about all of us as in everybody in the room, that's true. I mean all of us. Every part of me belongs at the feet of Jesus. So he's calling us there. Number 2, he's calling us to reorient what we see as faithful obedience to be defined by loving devotion alone, not proficiency in following the rules. What is faithful obedience? It's simply devotion. That's it. It's not how good you follow the rules. Because here's the thing. I love my wife, and because I love my wife, I love no others. It's not, I love no others, therefore, I should love my wife. It's, I love my wife, and that becomes the empowerment to have no other love for anybody else in that way, right? And so the devotion that we offer up to the Lord simultaneously becomes the ability to live out the identity that we've been transformed into. Not because we're trying to live that way, but because our love has reformed how we live in such a way that it fits within who we are. And then number 3, Jesus is calling us to allow the echo of resurrection life to resound out of us and allowing that to become what draws the hearts of people to where Jesus is enthroned. Why were people all over drawn to Jesus? Do you remember what I read? Why were they drawn to Jesus? Because of the news of the resurrection of Lazarus. Did you catch that? The crowd that had been with him when he called Lazarus out of the tomb and raised him from the dead continued to testify. So the crowds were all drawn to see what? Not just Jesus, they wanted to see Lazarus. So there is this call to let the echo of your own personal resurrection life, Paul says that we've died with Christ and we've also been raised with Christ. To allow the echo of your personal resurrection life to resound out of us and allow that to become what draws the heart of people to where Jesus is enthroned. I want people to look at my life and see there is such a life that I can see within him. It draws me to want to know how I can live like that. Right? People coming to, for example, church because you invited them is amazing. People coming to church because they hear there's an expression of life here that you can't find anywhere else is what calls people to come home. And so us becoming, as we've said for years, us becoming resurrection life and living it out will be its own evangelistic tool. You fully alive will draw the hearts of people to the Lord. It's like that old saying, I forget the preacher, I probably disagree with most of the stuff he says anyway, but I'm just assuming. But the old preacher said, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. Who said that? I probably don't even want to know. Does anybody know? Okay. No, that's okay. I shouldn't assume I disagree with him, but I think I've seen who said that before, and I think so. But anyway, nevertheless, this was a good thing. I agree with this. Preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. It's this thinking that your life preaches a gospel to people. Like whether or not your life preaches, that gospel is either a gospel of enslaved to fear and worry and doubt and apathy and not caring, or it's a gospel of resurrection life. So this is the thing that we don't understand in the South. We're always preaching a gospel, always. So when we do the whole thing of Easter and Christmas, and now Christmas has kind of been deleted, so now it's just Easter. When we do the whole thing of Easter only, we're preaching a gospel to the world, and that gospel is, who cares? St. Francis? Okay. I actually did a big writing on, I should have known that. I did a big writing on him last summer. Anyway, for my school, but never mind. I should have known that, man. So I guess I don't know. He's okay. He's okay. He is pretty odd dude. But anyway, so where was I? What was I? Somebody tell me where I was. Y'all weren't even listening. Thanks. Oh, I got it. But we're always preaching a gospel to somebody. So the gospel that we preach is, it doesn't matter. Typically, when we do the Easter to Easter to Easter, it doesn't matter. When we say, I'm too busy, what we're saying is, it doesn't matter. I mean, literally, like that is the gospel that we're preaching. On the opposite side, when we live a life that is fully alive in resurrection, we're also preaching a gospel which is, this is worth everything. And people are drawn to a zeal that is worth everything. I mean, when you live your life passionate about something, people are drawn to it. It doesn't even matter what it is. Like, I used Taylor Swift a couple of weeks ago, but that's a great example. She's a good songwriter, and the music is average and all that stuff. But like, people are drawn to it, and it's because there is just this zeal among her fans that people are just drawn. People want to be excited about stuff. And you know what I mean? People are just drawn to that. It's the same thing in politics. You'll get close to November, and people will start getting passionate because everybody else is passionate. People are drawn to zeal. When you live your life in zeal and in this resurrection life that is odd on the outside, that looks like you're willing to break the jar and pour it out at the feet of Jesus, there is something inside of people that looks at that and says, I can't make sense of that, but it feels right. And then they move beyond that and say, I can't make sense of that, but I think I want it. Veda, I'll end with this. I shared this Tuesday night, but Veda, did y'all see that? Did you see it? Did you feel your attention raised in that moment, right? I gave away my secret last week if you weren't here. Whenever preachers close their Bible, it's like this mental thing and people focus. That does not mean I'm almost done, but I am actually almost done. I should start doing that halfway through, just close my Bible, and people are like, oh, yeah, praise God. And then, you know what I mean? And then an hour later, it's like, wait a minute. Anyway, Veda, we were talking last week, and we were walking back from having lunch with Anna and Bryson at Cantina down the street. And so we were walking, and we were talking and all that stuff. And she was asked, she's in this stage where she's asking a lot of questions about the Bible and Jesus and, well, everything, asking a lot of questions about everything. But she is so smart, and so her brain just works. And unfortunately, I think she got my way of thinking, which I don't think that's a good thing. But anyway, but she's just wheels are turning. And so we were talking about Jesus dying, and she was asking, the question she asked was, think about how good this is. She's 7. She said, did the Roman guards kill Jesus because they didn't like him, or did they kill Jesus because they wanted their sins forgiven? And I was like, and obviously I walked her through that and stuff like that. But anyway, I was just like, man, the way that her mind works is like, I don't know, that's such a good question. That's very philosophical, which I love. But anyway, so we were talking and asking these questions. And then finally she said, would it be okay if on Easter, if I sit in the service instead of go to kids? And I was like, well, yeah, sure. Why? And she was like, I feel like it would be good information. That's what, And, But what she was saying is she just wants to, she wants to learn, she wants to know. And so we were like, yeah, of course she was like, but we can still have kids so that everybody else can have fun and, stuff like that. But she was like, but I want to sit in the service, But I say that because me and Jordan, we do devotions every day, and we have worship music playing. We do all that stuff. But there's just this thing in her that just wants to know more about this. And it's not because we've pressured her into doing a certain thing or thinking a certain way or whatever. It's just because there's a genuine life on the inside of her that is spewing out, and it's grasping for the language to hold on to and come out into. You know? Like, it's hard to live in stuff that you don't have a language for, but when you get language for it and knowledge of it, it begins to become the life that before was just kind of shut up in you. It's the same with like investing. If you just start to invest in whatever and you start throwing your money places, you will lose it. But when you learn how to take that and do smart things with it, it grows. So language becomes this thing that you grab onto, and your zeal becomes out of this shut up place and becomes alive. And so there's something rising up in her that's rising up in all of us, and it's the gospel. And so Jesus is calling us in this season to sit at his feet, to live in this place where we are reformed on a level of thinking, and then to move from that place to see that the echo of resurrection life in us is enough. So John's account of Palm Sunday is almost exclusively philosophical. It's changing how you think about everything. Each of these three things that I just listed, they point to something that goes against a natural way of thinking to the religious leaders' minds. But I want to end with this. Song of Songs 2, the first two verses, I want to end with this. I am truly his rose, the very theme of his song. I'm overshadowed by his love growing in the valley. And then the response from him is, yes, you are my darling companion. You stand out from all the rest. For though the curse of sin surrounds you, you remain as pure as a lily, even more than all the others. That's what we're called to. This exchange of devotion. So let me pray, and then we'll wrap it up. Lord, I thank you for everything this week represents that we're stepping into. I know it's become very commercialized, but for us, it's a big deal. For the creation, it's a big deal. Resurrection life, we now have access to because of the events that we're celebrating this week. And so, God, I pray that the honor of that would just swell up in us as we go through our week, as we're working at our jobs and doing classes and, all the stuff that we do throughout the week, hanging out with family. As we do this, I pray that there would be these constant reminders that we've been given a new life, that we do not have to live locked up in a tomb anymore. That we don't have to live as if we're a bunch of zombies that are dead even though we're still breathing. That we don't have to live fragile as if the promises of God are contingent on how we handle them. We can live with the full confidence that if you said it, it is done. That no word leaves your mouth and returns void. It is accomplishing what it was sent to accomplish, and it is achieving the purpose for which it was sent. And so we stand on that today, and we spend all that we have at the feet of your Son, Jesus, who gave it all for us. And in doing that, we believe that we're gonna gain life in return, fully alive without the possibility of death. And so we love you and honor you today. Amen. Before you leave, I didn't forget, we're going to give. And I wanted to save it to the end because I know we talked about different things, but like what we do with our treasure is very important. And so I just want to give you this opportunity. We're just pass it around, actually. So let's pass this around. If you're giving in person, you can drop it in the offering bucket. And if you're giving online, you can drop that on the online bucket. As you're doing that, just a quick reminder, I know Evan said it earlier, but it's Friday night, we will post the address in GroupMe. If you need to be added to that, please let us know, and we'll make sure you're added to that. But we will, I'll post the address this week. It'll be 7 o'clock, Friday night. We won't have Group Tuesday. Bible in 90 Days is on the app. And then, obviously, Easter is next Sunday. So, has anybody else got anything before we go? All right, awesome. Well, y'all have a good week, and we'll see you Friday. Yeah.